Welcome back, everybody. You are tuned into the Now Morning Show right here on TTT. Now, jumping right into it, the question is, what's on the menu? So, we are going to be chatting with a dietitian, and she is joining us live from Lebanon. Her name is Janelle Zakour, and definitely no stranger to the Now Morning Show. Good morning, Janelle.
Morning.
It is great to be, linking with you again.
In a different country this time.
Yeah, right? So, you were there in Beirut this morning.
I'm in Beirut, yes.
What time is it there?
It is 1:30, actually quarter to 2.
Quarter to 2
I didn't even know
p.m.?
PM.
Oh, wow. So at least
We're
it's not too
up.
early.
It's lunchtime for me.
Yeah, just about. So at least we're not like dragging you out of your bed at least.
Oh, no, it's all good.
All right, so today we're speaking tips for healthy eating on a budget. You know, many people think that eating healthy is a costly thing, and, getting good produce and things and maintaining a healthy diet is something that, only people with money can do. But, you as a dietitian, you could tell us about the ways in which we can, eat healthy on a budget,
That's right, and everybody now, not everybody, but most people now have either are laid off at home right now with no income coming in. So everybody is penny pinching, saving dollars, and we're going to look at ways that we can get healthy, wholesome meals in without having to rely too much on, panicking.
Right.
So the first thing we're going to talk about is planning. So it is always helpful before you make that grocery trip to plan your meals for the week ahead of time. So sit down, plan your menu, go through your cupboards, go through your fridge, see what you already have, so you don't end up double buying.
Right, I do that all the time.
Because we're all prone to double buying sometimes. Right? Buy only what you will use. Try to make it one grocery trip rather than multiple. We are trying to reduce our exposure to this virus. And when you're in the grocery or in the market, stick to your list because it's very easy to overbuy. And another trick you can use is to make sure you don't go while you're hungry, because it's very easy to overbuy when you go to the grocery hungry.
Trust me, I know. I pick up a bunch of things that I think I want at the time, and then by the time I get home, is something I regret.
Exactly. Another trick I like to let people know about is when you're in the grocery store specifically, you want to try to stick to the perimeter of the grocery. This is where the less processed foods are. The more refrigerated items, the produce, the frozen sections. You may get a little more less processed foods there. In the middle aisles, things tend to be they have longer shelf life, so they can be in the middle aisles. So you can if you're shopping the perimeter, you could go for your produce,
right?
Your whatever's in season. Actually, that's another good one. Try to go as local and seasonal as possible.
Reaching to the choir
Imported items will tend to be more expensive now, right? And another thing you want to do is try to look at the top and the bottom shelves, because when things are at eye level, these tend to be the pricier things. So if you're looking for tricks to save money, look at the top and the bottom shelves.
Look at that.
All right, and a lot of people now, we're at home. There's we can't go out and have food in a restaurant or anything right now. This is a good way to experiment with recipes, new recipes that you wouldn't have thought of trying before. A lot of people now are baking their own bread. This is a worldwide trend. Another benefit of cooking at home now is you know exactly what is going into your food. And it's always cheaper you can actually feed a family of 4 to 6 people cooking meals at home using cheaper things like rice and peas, as versus, going to a restaurant and buying food for 2. It's actually cheaper to make your food at home. And you also want to look at cooking large batches. Like, let's say you bought pumpkin in season, a whole pumpkin. You can cook the whole pumpkin and freeze, chunks of it. You can make purees and freeze that as well. All right. Another thing we could look at is buying in bulk. So brown rice, oats, these are all things we can stock up. Red beans, chana, these are all things we can, they have long shelf lives. We could keep these indefinitely. And we could also replace meat. Meat is very expensive now. I know here in Lebanon, it's really unaffordable at the moment. So we're looking at trying to include more legumes, more peas and beans into our diet, or replacing the meat entirely with things like eggs and cheese. These are also very high in protein.
Right. What about
So
soya? What about those soya chunks that it's like a meat substitute? That a plant-based meat substitute. Would you
mhm,
recommend things like that as well?
for vegetarians,
Yeah, for a vegetarian or anybody who really who they're trying to cut down that grocery bill and but they still want to
it
get
is
a
an
source of
option.
protein.
It is actually a whole protein. Soy products are whole proteins compared to other legumes, which are incomplete sources of protein. You need to pair it with a grain to make it a complete protein.
Right.
They're fine. Um, they are more processed, so I would recommend using more unprocessed soy products. We have tofu in the grocery. That's a good choice. Or the whole soybeans. You can boil them and freeze them. If you are looking to include meat in your diet, it's wise to limit it to about twice a week. And you don't always have to go for the expensive cuts. You can buy a cheap cut of meat and tenderize it. Carrie, you're a chef. You could share how you could tenderize a cheap cut of
Definitely.
meat. Um, let's say you couldn't make it to the market at all. There's nothing wrong with buying frozen fruits and vegetables. In
Okay.
fact, I know we have a lot of local producers that are um, supplying local frozen foods like popo. And finally, I want to leave you all with I'm a huge advocate for this, growing your own food at home.
Right.
You can use whatever you have at home, like an old tomato in the fridge, some old dried up okras. These are things you can stick in the ground. The ends of saive, put it in water, it grows roots, and you can put it outside. There's nothing more sustainable than and you increase your independence this way by growing your own food at home. And this way you have a ready source of food at all times.
Well, funny you should say that. We actually last week on the DIY segment we started our now garden, our now kitchen
Oh,
garden, and
I
so
missed
I
that one,
started off.
Carrie.
What's that?
I missed that one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So we're gonna check in like every 2 weeks or so, every 2 3 weeks to see the progress that the little seedlings have made. They haven't sprouted just yet, so I'm still waiting patiently. I do hope that it does sprout because I don't have much of a green thumb, but let's see. I tried. But yeah,
Mm,
people could get involved in that as well. And one thing I want to bring up though before we go, and this time in some cases canned foods are on the cheap side. I know they are processed and they do have the cons about them as well. But would you, as a
mhm.
dietitian, recommend, say some families are trying to save money in some ways, certain canned vegetables, is that something you would recommend?
You can. The only downside of canned foods is they tend to be very high in salt. So persons with high blood pressure, they may benefit more from using dried peas and beans and cooking them yourself with
Right,
no salt. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with using tinned options.
right. And any other final tips to cut down that grocery bill and to be a little more food safe in this time?
Uh, my biggest recommendation is try to grow your own food at home and cooking it at home as well. It's a good bonding experience for the family, and this is a family time right now.
Definitely, definitely. I know before in our conversations you've mentioned the variety in foods by color and stuff like as well because they have different properties and vitamins, minerals, and these things also. But in this time here where
Right.
people are in some cases restricted budgets, would you recommend doing a meal prep for the week, for instance, of one meal? Let's say a grain, two or three vegetables and a protein source, or would you
Oh, of
still
course.
tell them, or would you still recommend trying to mix it up?
Uh, no, you can cook like one thing. You can cook a bag of rice and use that rice in multiple different ways.
Right.
For example, let's let what give me two vegetables for you want to recommend. Hey,
Well,
two
cheap
different colors.
vegetables, for
Pumpkin.
instance, carrots are super cheap.
Okay.
Pumpkin is super cheap as well. So,
Hmm.
yeah, that's my two options. Let's say
I didn't
something
hear the other
local,
one.
bodi,
Carrot and
carrots, pumpkin, and let's say a third one, bodi, because it's local.
okay, I'm gonna go with carrots and bodi, right?
Right.
I mean, bodi is not as flexible as something like a carrot. A carrot you could use in many different ways. Of carrot puree, you can make carrot soup. You could use carrot chunked up in rice or in macaroni pie. Um, Give me another one. Something leafy.
Something leafy, pak choi.
Spinach. You could use frozen spinach in soups and different dishes. You could even put it in smoothies. There's another benefit to meal prepping, like the fruits and vegetables. You can blend them into smoothies. You could use frozen fruit as different toppings. Yes, you are right. You really should be looking at using different colors in different ways.
Okay.
And this is the experimentation process, Carrie.
Yeah, definitely. As a lot more people are staying safe at home and finding ways in which to keep occupied and fed, these are good tips and examples of how they can keep that grocery bill low and, of course, still maintain a healthy diet. Janelle, I want to thank you again for joining us all the way from Beirut there, and it's always a pleasure. Hopefully, we could chat with you again next week to find out what's on the menu. All right. And
nice chatting, Carrie.
All right, nice chatting with you. Chat again soon.
Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
And with that, we're going to take a short break once more and come back with the rest of the first hour, and then we'll be back after that on the flip side. All right? Stay with us.